terrible with summarizing other people's books and
Sure.
summarizing other people's biographies.
Yeah.
So right here at the top, for people that haven't been actively stalking you online for years, tell esteemed audience a little bit about yourself and your books.
Sure. My name is Dan Kenney. I'm, middle 40s. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, still live there. I met my wife in junior high. We got married after college. We have 8 kids between the ages of 18 and 5. Anna, Isaac, Jude, Brendan, Daniel, Rachel, Fulton, Joshua. I used to be a high school teacher. I taught high school math and I taught high school theology. So I majored in math in college and have a master's degree in theology. At some point, the whole having kids, teacher salary just didn't work. So my wife and I switched places 7 years ago. She became the full-time, away from the home worker. She's a nurse practitioner. She's great at what she does. And I became the full-time stay-at-home parent. I'm marginal at what I do. And so as I was taking care of these kids, big crazy house, I needed an outlet. I needed something else I could do. And one of the things I loved to do with my kids was tell stories and to read stories. And I'd loved books all my life. And one day one of them said, "Hey, Dad, why don't you turn that story into a book?" And another one of them said, "Yeah, Dad, you should do that." And that was like a personal challenge. And I had thought about writing books, but I had never actually thought about writing fiction. And so I thought, what the heck? So 2011, 2012, I started jumping in trying to write fiction for the first time, really. And so what I decided to do was write the kinds of books that my kids would enjoy. And that placed me at the time kind of in the middle grade and chapter book area. And that's most of what my books have been. More recently, I've done more picture books. And I do have a pen name in which I've written the first 2 books of a adult cozy mystery series. All told, I've got 35 or so published books. And again, most of them are for kids, middle grade, chapter books, picture books. That's what I do.
So right away, I'm going to call out some writers I've been working with, and we're going to talk a little bit more about a writing workshop that I've got going because I've had them write questions to ask you, and we'll do that before the end. They're listening now, so they're the contenders. Hi, contenders. Thanks for tuning in. But some of them are giving me excuses. Oh, I can't write today. I have a child. I have 2 children. And here you are regularly publishing books, and you have 8 children. So the first question I've got for you is how does an author as prolific as you, what's your workday look like, and how are you staying so prolific with all of your other responsibilities?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think once you have 8 kids, you realize, everybody's busy. I think back to when I was in college. And when I was in college, I thought I was busy. And then when years later, you're not in college and you have 8 kids and you're running around and you realize, wow, I really wasn't that busy. The point is that we all fill our lives up. In college, I may not have had 8 kids, but I was filling my time up with other stuff. I wasn't crazy when I thought I was busy. I was just busy with different stuff than I am. So I think the first thing I always tell people who say, "Oh gosh, I only have 2 kids, you have 8, how do you do it?" is, okay, settle down. We're all busy. Everybody's busy. And I think that's important to address because sometimes I, as a writer, have looked at the John Grishams of the world or other people who at one point, just doing the 1 book a year. And I thought to myself, oh, wouldn't that be ideal? I just go out to my secret writing hut and I write for 3 hours and then I walk the dog and I have coffee and I just live a literary life. And, that's not, once you're in the indie world and you meet like successful writers, you realize that's not most people's reality. That may be a few people out there, but even the John Grishams of the world work their tail off. And I think the thing you realize is that to be successful at writing, you have to work really hard. This sort of dream scenario where you just write a couple hours a day and poof, all your dreams come true. If it happens to anybody out there, it's the exception and not the rule. Because when you get involved in indie writing forums and you meet people, whether romance novelists or mystery or middle grade, you realize people who are successful work really, really hard. And so the number one thing I would say is, well, you have to work hard. And number two, me personally, I'm not focused every day. I just know that's not my life. I'm not somebody who's going to crank out 2,000 words every day. But at the beginning of each year, I give myself an idea of sort of the projects I want to accomplish. And in order for me to accomplish them, there comes times where I have to write a lot. And so there might come a time where I'm behind deadline and I have to write 10,000 words in a day. But there will be many days where I don't write anything. The number one thing for me, though, is I love making things. That's what I love doing. I love making things. And right now, the thing I'm spending most of my time doing when I'm not, managing a household is I like making books.
I aspire to one day write 10,000 words. I'm a slow poke. If I get my 500 words for middle grade, 1,000 words if I'm writing for adults, but I do it every day. I feel like
Sure.
John Grisham, Stephen King. I couldn't stop patting myself on the back how proud I am of myself. But 10,000 words. What does a day that includes 10,000 words look like? How many hours are you writing to get that?
Oh, I mean, all day. But let me be clear. I would way rather, and I think I would be much more productive and more successful if I just wrote 500 words a day. I just think if that's what I did, if I was more focused and more disciplined, and I did that, I think it would be more productive. I am by nature kind of flighty. I see the shiny new object. I'm kind of all over the place. At times, it takes me a lot to kind of get to the keyboard. So what that usually means is I'm behind, I'm on deadline. I tell my wife, I have to get away this weekend. So I get to the coffee shop early that morning. I write all morning. Then I go to a different coffee shop and I write all afternoon. And then I go to the best place for me to do the late night writing when I'm on deadline are hotel lobbies. That's my super secret joint to go for late night writing.
Really? What is it about a hotel lobby that gets you going?
I love it. There's a certain amount of life going on. There's interesting people coming. There's always good Wi-Fi. They don't care if I'm there. They're not closing at 9. It's not like Panera and I got to get out of there before 9. I know I can just chill and get everything done I need to. So a 10,000 word day, which doesn't happen often, but I've had to do it multiple times, is a day where I'm at multiple different venues. Saturday, start at 7, come home at 11, that kind of thing.
I'm going to have to try that out. I've done multiple coffee shops. I have never tried a hotel lobby, so that's next on my bucket list of things I need to try.
Right, totally. It makes you feel a little desperate, like
No, I feel that way. I've just been feeling it in coffee shops. I need to feel it in a hotel lobby.
Hotel lobbies are good, so that's what it looks like. But I think the people who regularly go on Kindle boards and every week, they check in and they say, I wrote my 1,000 words a day, or Wayne Stinnett has the 5,000 words a week club. That is such a better way to do it than the way I do it. But what I would say is when I'm not writing, I'm usually thinking about writing or thinking about doing books. A lot of times I'm with my kids, traveling places, and so writing isn't necessarily really practical. But I always have a piece of paper or a notebook, and I'm jotting down ideas, thinking ahead, thinking about characters, or thinking about new picture book titles. I just really love to make things, like I said. And if you were to put like a workshop in front of me and a bunch of wood, then I would just be making furniture. But right now I'm making books, and that's what I like to do.
So when we're talking 10,000 words, are you doing that longhand or are you typing?
Typing. Yeah, I was not a kid who grew up with computers, and so like at the beginning of high school, I would try to make other people type my papers, and that didn't go over well. So my parents forced me to take a typing class, like a real typing class with the home row. And then over time, you just get better, and so I'm a quick typist now. And so that doesn't hold me back, and I like typing and I like going fast. I just wish I was more disciplined and did it every day. Like I always think, oh, if I just did 1,000 words, that's a heck of a lot of fiction in one year. But alas, I just fall down at some point.
Well, I don't know. I mean, here we are, and as I've confessed, I'm a slower writer than most. It shames me when I talk with other indie authors, especially I was talking with Susan K. Quinn a couple episodes back.
Yeah.
Ashamed of my productivity levels compared to her. But you and I started publishing, I think I was the year after,
Okay.
but about the same time. But here I'm coming up on book number 10 versus 34. So I think you're doing just fine.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But I have smaller books and I have picture books, so it's not apples to apples. You got some really substantial fiction in there, so it's it's probably closer than you think. Be my guess. So.
But for those that are now checking our Amazon pages and counting, yes, I count all 5 chapters of the Book of David as 5 books, and you would too if you'd written them and revised them.
I would too.